Can Pablo Torre's sourcing in the Kawhi Leonard scandal simply be dismissed? That's the case that Mark Cuban is going to make when he appears on Pablo Torre Finds Out. Cuban has very famously been on the side of Steve Ballmer, saying that Pablo Torre's actually done him wrong. Is that accurate? Plus, did the Knicks actually circumvent the NBA salary cap when they signed Jalen Brunson away from Mark Cuban's Mavs? A couple of really important things to get into here. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. I say it all the time. 70% of you guys, you're not subscribed. Hit that subscribe button for us. Great way to help out the channel. Okay, check out this conversation. We'll get into the next part in just a moment here, but check out this part of the conversation. Mark Cuban is going to make a case here that what's happened here is not fair to Steve Ballmer. Give this a listen. This is Pablo Torre on Pablo Torre Finds Out.
They're trying to survive, right? You don't announce that you signed a guy that you, and by the way,
okay, so
they ended up paying him less than they paid those celebrities.
How do you know that?
Because he only was paid twice.
That I have reported so far.
No, that anybody that's anywhere. If you go back on the numbers,
sources that tell you that he got paid more than what I reported
at most. So let's just do the math.
Well, the bankruptcy filing says he's owed $7 million.
Right.
The deal was 28.
Right.
And so somewhere between the 3.5 that I've reported in 2022 and that is a big gulf.
No. Right. So what happens is the 28 million, when the day that they go bankrupt, anything past that, or the day they file.
Yeah. So wipe off the last year.
So wipe off. So that's 21.
Yeah.
Right. So that's 7. Now that's down to 14. Right. If there wasn't any other conversation or anything. So at most.
Do you have information that there was conversation about that?
About the remaining dollars? No.
I just don't think we can definitively say, based on the evidence, that he got paid only $3.5 million.
But think of it this way, right? 16.
Okay, so here's the thing. Mark Cuban right now is making the argument like, well, you know, I know there's the story out there that Kawhi was making way more than people who are more famous than him in exchange for promoting aspiration, which to the best of our knowledge, he never actually did. He never went out and planted any trees or did any of that. But Cuban is making the argument, well, no, but he actually only got $3-ish million that arrived because the company went bankrupt. So he didn't actually wind up getting, it doesn't matter. It does not matter how much Kawhi, it matters to Kawhi how much he actually got. The point is they agreed to pay him $28 million and reasonably intended to do so. But once the money gets into aspiration, does it have to be Steve Ballmer's money, the actual money that Ballmer put over to aspiration? Or is it just once that pool of money gets redistributed to Kawhi Leonard at a rate that is shockingly high, is that enough for the NBA to say, yeah, something fishy was going on here? Or do they need to see actually, obviously they don't really use a dollar bill, but do they mark a red X on a dollar bill? And if that dollar bill winds up in Kawhi's wallet, is that the proof then of salary cap circumvention? That's the question with all of this. But aspiration agreeing to pay Kawhi Leonard $28 million, which is way more than any other celebrity was getting, is a big part of this whole question. Why would they be willing to do that? They may have committed fraud. They may not be the best people on the planet, but that doesn't mean that they're insane. You would have to be crazy to give Kawhi Leonard that kind of money to do nothing, to not promote your company at all. And that is the question that has still not been answered. Okay, if there is no salary cap circumvention, then why? Why would anyone in their right mind do this? Why would anyone agree to this? This is a legal document. If the company doesn't go bankrupt, they're still going to have to pay Kawhi Leonard that money. That's why Kawhi, the ball's on him, said, they still owe me $7 million. So you did nothing. You did nothing for them. So Mark Cuban saying, well, you know, Kawhi didn't actually get physically, the money never arrived there. Pablo Torre contests that, says that's not true. But even if it was, the point is that the company signed a deal with Kawhi to pay him that much money. That was the plan. That was their intention. They thought that was going to be a good investment. Now, why would they think that? And again, there is documentation showing that not everybody within aspiration thought that was a good idea and thought that was very, very strange. Again, all of this getting wrapped up into this, but I don't think we can just dismiss why would Kawhi make so much more than people that are more famous than him by simply saying, well, you know, he may not have actually received the money. They agreed to do it. All right, let's continue on here.
Potential payments. You only knew about 2 of them. And one of them, from your first reporting, right, you had tied specifically to Ballmer. But we know Ballmer's money was all gone by the time the agreement was even signed. So you went out and made this assertion about Ballmer without knowing that the money wasn't even available.
We had
to
7
pay.
sources, but I want to go past that because you don't
But
believe
the
the
7
sources.
sources.
Okay, so I want to pause that there again. Did it have to actually be the money? Did you mark a red X on that dollar bill, and it had to be the actual money that Ballmer put in, or is it Aspiration gets $50 million from Ballmer? That increases Aspiration's total cash by $50 million. Maybe they technically take Ballmer's money and spend it in a different area, but now you still have that extra money that you didn't spend, and you're going to give that to Kawhi. Or does it have to actually follow a trail and go right into Ballmer's money? Has to get rerouted right into Kawhi's bank account. I don't know. They will have to. The NBA will have to come up with that. But check this out. This is, to me, crazy.
Was the guy with the whatever modulated voice,
one of the finance department employees who was interviewed by the federal government, who's pointing me to documents that have been verified by every single
all
other
it means
source
he works in the accounts payable department or in the finance department.
I think it's easy to dismiss the sources, and I can't possibly convince you otherwise.
No,
that's okay.
But it's not even just about dismissing. It's just not enough. You just shit on a guy's reputation by having some guy in the AP department who's tried to tie it. Your guy said they're trying to survive, right? You don't.
Okay, so Mark Cuban is saying, well, it's okay. It's not enough. A guy in the accounts payable department saying that this money was going to Kawhi and that he had heard that this was about circumventing the NBA salary cap. That's simply not enough to put this out there. I mean, if that's the case, then what is the standard for a source? If you have somebody who is in the accounts payable department, who is part of the process of actually paying people, who says, hey, something fishy is going on here, how is that not enough of a source? If that's the case, then nobody's a source unless you get, I think what Mark Cuban wants here is the proverbial smoking gun. He wants to see an email from Steve Ballmer, hear a phone call from Steve Ballmer saying, let's talk about circumventing the NBA salary cap. Here's how we're going to do it. I would assume that they would not be dumb enough to do that. I can't imagine that would actually be something that the Clippers would do. But again, this whole situation says that bottom line, no matter what, whether they're found guilty or not, poor choices were made in this situation. But did the Knicks do something similar to take Jalen Brunson away from the Dallas Mavericks? And they've actually already gotten punished for it, which is really interesting. And Mark Cuban's going to talk about that next. We'll get there in 30 seconds.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code Bulletin. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Okay, and Sleeper does have a great promo right now. Free $20 entry. Again, use that link in the description down below, and that promo code is Bulletin. All right, let's take a look at this. So Pablo brings up the Dirk Nowitzki allegations to Mark Cuban that did the Mavs circumvent the salary cap to pay Dirk when he took less? And then it gets into, what have the Knicks done with Jalen Brunson? And I'll tell you guys in just a minute, the truly unfortunate part about all of this, the Kawhi situation. There's a lot of unfortunate things, but I'm talking about moving forward. What's really unfortunate with this whole situation. Here we go. Check this out.
So part of the reason why it's funny to be in this eternal conversation with you is because people are like, are you ever going to ask him about the Mavs and the Dirk Nowitzki sweetheart deal in 2014 to stay in Dallas where he
eternal conversation. Mark Cuban has spent God knows how much time battling Pablo over this and defending Steve Ballmer.
Signed for about $8 million a year when, of course, he had max offers on the table that I have confirmed. There's a conspiracy theory out there. And by the way, this is me asking. This is like, right. I don't have...
I'm here to confess.
So
I gave him $48 million
That is not Sora. That is actual Mark. The conspiracy out there, is that why would he take so much less?
He wanted Tim Duncan money. He was at his age. And remember, the cap, I went back and looked, was $58 million 3 years in a row, right? It wasn't going up at all. And it was, how do you manage your cap? And Tim Duncan had done a 3 for 30 deal. And I vividly remember having the conversation. And he's like, I'd like to get Tim Duncan money. I'm like, Dirk, cap stayed flat. Here's what we want to do. And he was like, okay. And then the next year, 2016, when the cap went up, we were able to pay a lot more.
But the money he left on the table, the question is,
no, you presume, okay.
He had max offers.
I don't even know that they spoke to him. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. But look, if
I can tell you that he did from those other teams.
Who'd you talk to? Daryl and who else?
I can tell you that there were max offers on the table.
Daryl would have come to me and said, let's make a trade. I can pay Dirk. I want to pay Dirk more.
So you're saying that he didn't get max offers at that time in 2014?
I'm saying it's highly unlikely at the age he was, and the fact that they knew that he wanted to stay, that is highly unlikely.
Look, Dirk wanting to stay in Dallas is so clear to me.
I'm not saying he's getting offers, getting offers. The cap was $58 million at the time, right? So 35% of it, right?
So the question is, and this is truly like not my reporting. So, but the conspiracy out there, Reddit, our buddy Bill Simmons.
When Dirk had that documentary and Cuban's company bought it,
is this documentary? So the theory here is that Magnolia Pictures,
my company, they own half of.
That's right. Circumvented the cap by, overpaying to distribute a documentary about Dirk.
How he spent like Iron Man level money on the Dirk doc. Here's $48 million for your doc. Like, who knows what he spent, but.
How much do you think we paid?
Okay. So what Pablo's bringing up is saying, hey, people are wondering, like, Dirk took less to stay with the Mavs, could have got more elsewhere. Did something funny happen here? And Bill Simmons has brought up this documentary about Dirk Nowitzki, and that Mark Cuban's company bought it, and all of that. And I think Cuban gives a perfectly reasonable response here. I love this. Check this out.
Well, what we did was we checked with the producers of the film, and to your credit, they poured cold water on the whole conspiracy. The head of the production company told us that your company did a $100,000 deal for U.S. distribution rights.
For how many years?
10. So yeah, I'm just I'm not here to say gotcha.
$100,000 for 10 years distribution deal. That's not salary cap circuit. But look, $100,000 is a lot of money to most people, right? But over 10 years, that you're not circumventing the NBA salary cap with $100,000. And so I love that they came in here with like actual numbers, right? That rather than just, now Cuban did say, I don't know when it came to, did Dirk have max offers elsewhere? And Pablo said, well, yeah, there's reporting that he did. But he was able to show like, hey, we didn't, clearly we can't be circumventing the cap because here is the actual amount that we paid, because that was the question. And that was refreshing because that's not what we heard from Steve Ballmer or anybody else with the Clippers. We can refute the whole Kawhi Leonard situation. We look forward to proving that it's all false. Great. We've heard nothing other than, I don't know. Now, maybe they just want to save their arguments for the NBA, for the whole process, and don't want to put it out there publicly. Okay. But then why go on ESPN and then just say over and over again, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know what Kawhi's deal was with Aspiration. I love that Cuban just said, well, hey, here was the deal. It was $100,000. Done. Okay. If that's correct, there's no salary cap circumvention. There's not enough money. If Kawhi got 10 grand from Aspiration, would anybody care? No. Because he got 28 million. Some have him up to 48 million. All right, this gets into the Jalen Brunson of it all.
I'm just here legitimately say
I appreciate you looking. You know what? And I thank you. I thank you for just dispelling all the nonsense.
I called
the
producers, and so just to confirm, did the Mavericks circumvent the salary cap with Dirk Nowitzki in 2014?
No.
Very good. Do you think the Knicks may have circumvented the cap in taking Jalen Brunson from your Mavericks?
I don't know.
A different answer.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I just think there was a lot of play there.
Yeah. Do you think the Knicks at the end here should be worried about an upcoming episode of Mark Cuban Finds Out?
That's behind me. More power to JB, more power to everything. Was I happy that they only got dinged for a second round pick? No, it should have been far worse, but is what it is.
Okay. So The Knicks, when they signed Jalen Brunson, they were accused, this was back in 2022, of tampering, that they were communicating with him. Now, his dad Rick Brunson works for the Knicks. His former agent runs the Knicks, Leon Rose. And so the Knicks were accused of tampering with Jalen Brunson, and they were found to have been guilty, essentially, right, of tampering. The problem is the cost for the Knicks. What did it actually cost them to have been found to have tampered with Jalen Brunson? It cost them 1 second-round pick, a 2025, actually, second-round pick. That's it. That was all. They were found guilty of tampering with Jalen Brunson, and the cost was 1 second-round pick. Now, tampering with a player is certainly not the same as circumventing the salary cap and paying him under the table or routing it through a third party or anything like that. Those two things are not equal when it comes to the punishment that should be doled out. But that second-round pick, there were a lot of people around the NBA who just rolled their eyes and went, oh, well, like, yes, please sign me up. I will tamper away if the cost is 1 second-round pick. If that is the only price I have to pay, it is well worth it. And this is why if the Knicks only got a second-round pick punishment for tampering with Jalen Brunson, nobody's going to worry that much about tampering with the player. If the Clippers are found to have committed some sort of, I don't want to say the word crime, but do something wrong in this situation with Kawhi Leonard, violate NBA rules, this is why Adam Silver must charge up Mjolnir, get all the lightning you can around it, and drop that hammer. Because otherwise, what we're going to see moving into the future is if the Knicks or the Clippers are, number one, found to have done something wrong, which we don't know if they will be or not. The court of public opinion right now certainly suggests that they have done something wrong. But if the NBA in their investigation says, and there's skepticism about, how much is the NBA really going to look into this and all of that. I've seen that conversation going around online. I'm going to try to trust that the NBA will do the right thing here and will fully investigate and all of that. But let's say the NBA uncovers that, yeah, something weird was going on here and the Clippers were involved and there's salary cap circumvention. What you have to do is punish the Clippers as strongly as possible. And that's not the Lakers fan in me coming out here. This is a concern over the future of the NBA situation coming out, because what cannot happen is, just as with the Jalen Brunson tampering situation, other owners went, that's the cost? Yeah, let's do some tampering. What you can't have is other owners or even the Clippers ownership say, well, okay, that's it. That was a slap on the wrist. That's nothing. Okay, now we know. Now we have a path to funnel money to players outside of the salary cap. And when you have owners in this league that are worth the amount of money that Steve Ballmer is, that is absolutely destructive of any type of parity, any type of leveling the playing field, any of that you could potentially hope for. So the NBA, if they find that something happened here was not on the up and up, it's my opinion that they absolutely must drop the hammer, set the precedent, not only to deal with this situation, but to make sure it never happens again. That is what they want. They want to deter this from ever happening again. Again, if it's found that the Clippers did something wrong in this situation. Now, again, the Brunson, Mark Cuban saying there was not enough. 1 second-round pick was not nearly enough of a punishment for the Knicks for tampering with Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson famously signed with the Knicks, spurned the Mavs. The Mavs had opportunities to sign him, didn't feel like he was necessarily worth it. But now there's questions about, well, what's going on really with Jalen Brunson? And I'll tell you the downside to this, but there's questions about this because Jalen Brunson took a very below market value deal to sign an extension with the Knicks. So take a look at this. This was just over a year ago. Jalen Brunson accepted a $156.5 million deal, $113 million less than the 2025 deal. Unprecedented financial concession. Unprecedented is the word. To give roster flexibility to a contending franchise, Knicks All-NBA guard Jalen Brunson has agreed to a 4-year, $156.5 million contract extension, $113 million less guaranteed than he's eligible to sign in 2025. So what happened? Why? Why did this happen? All right, take a look at Jalen Brunson's salary. This is what happened. So Jalen Brunson's under contract with the Knicks, signs a 4-year deal in 2022, player option after the 3rd year, which would allow him to hit free agency this past summer, 2025. But what happened was he had the ability to extend that contract in 2024. And the problem was because he was extending off of the contract the Knicks initially gave him. Now, this was before Jalen Brunson was really Jalen Brunson. You know what I mean? Before he really took off. I mean, you could see it here. You could see the numbers. Obviously, he played well in the playoffs for the Mavs, but he went from being a 16-point per game scorer during the regular season, 4.8 assists, to 24 and 6 on really good percentage of 42% from 3. He went from being a really good up and coming guard in this league to, oh my God, this is a superstar. This is a top 10 player in the league right now. So the Knicks initially paid him on their initial contract was not super. It was a big contract. Some even said it was too much, but it was not superstar level money. So when you're looking to do a contract extension, the most you can do is 140% of the previous salary, as long as that doesn't go above the max. And so when they could offer him that extension, they couldn't offer him the full money that he was worth. And so most people assumed, well, Jalen Brunson's just going to wait until 2025, opt out of his player option. He can make every assurance to the Knicks that he's not going anywhere, and then they give him a max contract. That's why there's this big gap between what Jalen Brunson could extend off of the below market value contract. As it turned out, once he became a Knick, it was a below market value contract because he became one of the top 10 players in the NBA. So he could only extend off of that. And so the amount that he could get was very limited. Compared to a full max. He's an all NBA guy. He was eligible for the Rose Rule and all that sort of stuff. And so he would have been able to get way more money. And that raised eyebrows. Why would he do this? Why would he not just wait? And people will say, well, there's injury risk. Yeah, you know what, though? When you get to that level, when you get to be a top 10 guy in the NBA, the money's going to be there. That we proved it. Kevin Durant, with one good Achilles, got a max contract. Now, Kevin Durant is a all-time first ballot Hall of Famer, no question. One of the greatest players in the NBA ever. Maybe Jalen Brunson's not in that tier, but still the bottom line is that we've proven that even a player who suffers a catastrophic injury, they are so valuable when they are the true superstars in the NBA that teams will still pay them. Teams will still fork over the money to give them a max contract, even if that means paying them max money for a year to not play for their team, to rehab, and then get back to them the next year. It literally happened with Kevin Durant. And so in general, max level players don't worry too much about injury, not to the same degree as other players might, because they know that even if they do get hurt, they are such a rarity that they're going to get paid regardless. A team will pay them to rehab on their dime. And so Jalen Brunson taking so much less was a huge surprise to a lot of people around the NBA. Now, Jalen Brunson does still have the ability, as this ESPN, this was, while Woj was still around, as this ESPN article notes, Jalen Brunson can recoup the $113 million to a degree on a 4-year, $323 million extension in 2028, or a new 5-year deal in 2029. But now we're kicking the can down the road pretty far. By that point, who knows what things look like in the NBA and all of that. So this is still a huge surprise that Jalen Brunson took so much less. Now, what does that mean for the Knicks cap sheet? Well, it means that now you've got a top 10 player. I think even Jalen Brunson's biggest detractors would say he's top 15 at worst. All NBA vote would tell you otherwise. I'm going to call him top 10. But you've got him under contract at now $35 million this season, 37, almost $38 million the next season, $40 million the season after that. That is well, but look at Cat. Karl Anthony Towns. If the Knicks had to pick between Towns and Jalen Brunson, they would pick Jalen Brunson in a heartbeat. We've got a 30+% discount here, 33% discount when we're going from Karl Anthony Towns to Jalen Brunson. And based on the reporting right now, the Knicks in their conversations with the Bucks for Giannis Antetokounmpo said Jalen Brunson is off limits. Didn't say that about Cat. Didn't say that about Karl Anthony Towns. And specifically when we talk about a Jalen Brunson going into his age 29 season, when the Woj report was talking about 2028 He could get, okay, so Jalen Brunson, 2028. Now he's 32, going into age 32 season. He's a smaller guard. Those guys don't necessarily age the best. Like, that's a risk for him. I don't think Jalen Brunson can really look at that and say, oh, yeah, I'm definitely getting maxed when I'm 33, 32, 33. Am I going to be playing at that level at that point? It's why it was so important for him to capitalize now. So a lot of people look at that and say, well, why would he do this? I mean, look at how much it benefits the Knicks. You've got a top 10 guy at well below top 10 money. Now, compare that to Cat's money. Not the same. If this were flipped, it would make some sense, right? If this were flipped, Brunson and Cat, the amount of money they're making, you'd say, okay. But Jalen Brunson is now one of the top guys in the NBA. That's the bottom line, right? And you've got him way below market value. I mean, look at what Luka is getting, right? He's over above 50 million. Look at LeBron, 53 million. We look at the top guys around the league. We look at Kevin Durant, 54 million and change. These guys are getting more money, significantly more than Jalen Brunson is getting. And so that raises eyebrows around the NBA. Did something happen here? Given that his dad works for the team, his former agent runs the team, was there some type of salary? Why would Jalen Brunson take so much less? And I'm not here to say that this is proof that the Knicks somehow circumvented the salary cap or anything like that. Maybe Brunson, to be honest, look, there is, I would think, I don't know, because, surprise, I'm not a millionaire, but I would have to imagine that Jalen Brunson's quality of life is not going to change all that much if he gets $156.5 million as opposed to $270 million. Right? I would assume that his quality of life ain't going to change all that much. Maybe he just really wanted to lock in the long-term security. As the Woj piece paints, Brunson really wanted to make sure that his team, citing franchise quarterbacks in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Derek Jeter with the Yankees, in baseball, citing athletes taking less to help their teams in the past, that was what he wanted to do. And maybe that was it. I hope that's it. And that there is no salary cap circumvention here. This was just Jalen Brunson looked at it and said, I care a ton about winning. I care so much about winning that I will take over $100 million less over the long haul of this deal in order to try to give my team more flexibility so we can go win basketball games. And you know what? The quality of my life, as long as I'm not an idiot with my money, the quality of my life isn't going to change all that much if I've got a $156 million deal or if I'm at a $270 million deal. I think most people would not think of it that way. And I can certainly say that if these numbers were different, if this was $56,000 or $170,000, does the quality of your life change? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The quality of your life changes if we're talking about 56,000 or 170,000. But when you're that far into hundreds of millions, quality of life doesn't change all that much, I would imagine. I don't know. I would like to know, but I don't know. So what this all brings me to, though, is the big point that we don't know. We don't know for sure what it is that caused Jalen Brunson to take so much less money. But the fact that the Kawhi thing is going down the way that it is causing people to go back and look at the Jalen Brunson situation. While the story was at the time, look at him taking less, look at how great this is for the team. Now it's met with skepticism. And what this means for superstar level talent moving forward in the NBA, what this means is you can't win. Now, you could, of course, win in that you're getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars, no question. But think about it. Now, for at least while the Kawhi Leonard situation is in the public consciousness, there is no winning in public perception. Because right now, anytime a star takes the max, it's, well, why didn't he take less? Why didn't he give the team a discount? Why didn't he take less money so the team could be better? So my team could be better. That guy didn't take less. What? hundreds of millions of dollars wasn't enough for him. See it all the time. See that conversation all the time. Now, let's say a guy does take less. Say, you know what? I am going to do that. I'm going to prioritize winning. From now on, it's going to be guy takes less. It's going to be where's the money really coming from? Where are you getting the money under the table? You're going to be met with scrutiny. You're going to be met with skepticism. And again, I can't speak to whether or not anything funky happened with the Jalen Brunson. So we don't know. But those questions are now going to be asked because of the Kawhi Leonard situation. The story of the superstar level player who sacrifices for the team, for the betterment of the club and all of that, now that's going to be met with skepticism. And so if I am a superstar level player, at that point, I'm going to say, screw it then. If people are going to question me and look at me suspiciously, no matter what I do, I take less and it's, oh, you must be getting the money under the table. I take the max and it's, well, you must not be a team player. Well, people are mad at me either way. I'll just give me the more money then. I'll take all the money and go from there. That's, I think, the unfortunate part beyond just what it means for the NBA, the conversation around the league, all of that. But now moving forward, anytime a player takes less, criticism, skepticism, accusations. Anytime they don't take less, criticism, scrutiny, accusations. You're not a team player. Guess you're not a winner. All of that. And now people are looking at the Jalen Brunson situation. Mark Cuban even talking about there. Hey, the Knicks, we already know the Knicks did something wrong, violated rules. They got penalized for it, not much, but they got penalized for it. Now people are looking at it saying, why did he take so much less? Was something else going on here? Why would he take that extension when he did instead of just waiting a year and getting hundreds of millions of dollars more to play basketball for the Knicks? That's where we're at. All right, everybody. This show wound up being way longer than I intended it to be. Tends to happen, though. Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to subscribe right here to the Basketball Bulletin. Donnie and I are trying to keep you up to date on everything going on around the NBA, take on some of the controversial stories, things of that nature. So we appreciate all the support that you guys have given us here. Please make sure you do hit that subscribe button. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.